I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but we're all going to be Bitcoin maximalists now. And again, I recognize that many of its exponents and so on are like insane and it's all true. But unfortunately, you're going to kind of need insane people for what is about to happen. Most of our people don't have any idea of what's coming. Okay. Because I think now they have printed so much money that it's a matter of time. But I want to be wrong in a sense because it's like prepping, you know, it's like buying a gun or whatever. You hope you don't have to use it, but you better be prepared because you might.
About the $20 you owe me.
Oh, yeah? Well, I only got 10, so here's 10, I owe you 10.
Thanks. Hey, Mo, you owe me 20. Well, here's 10, I'll owe you 10.
You owe me 20.
Here's 10, I owe you 10.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Here's the 10 I owe you.
Good, now we're all even.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Bitcoin continues to push up right now. We are literally sitting at the exact level right here, waiting to see what happens today with the FOMC meeting. Now, by the time you're watching this video, you may or may not know the outcome of the FOMC. We will go into that later in this video. But you can also see that the S&P is also testing this extremely critical uptrend right now as well. So it's almost like the markets have just stalled out and they're all just waiting to see what happens next with Powell. Now, there is so much that we need to talk about today. I want to discuss what Balaji has been talking about with this $1 million Bitcoin bet. He was over on Anthony Pompliano's channel, and there is a lot of fear right now. There's fear that maybe this was all intentional, that maybe the government is purposefully trying to cut off these crypto on-ramps and off-ramps, and could it possibly get to the point where we actually have individual states within the United States fighting over who can and can't use cryptocurrencies? Because listen, they have FedNow, which is going to be launching. Powell has come out and he spoke about it, and that's going to be coming out in the next few months, I believe in about 3 months from now. And could that lead to an eventual CBDC? Well, now we have Florida Governor DeSantis basically saying that he won't stand for it. So is there almost like this civil war starting? How bad is it really going to get? So we're going to talk about all that today, guys. Regardless of the outcome of the Fed FOMC today, you need to stick around to the end of this video because times are about to get wild, and these are those times that we have been talking about and we have been preparing about for all these years. So if that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, definitely consider it. And also, quick question: is Bitcoin actually going to $1 million? And are we about to set a short-term parabolic trend to 60K as a first target? So lots of crazy stuff we got to talk about today. So obviously, at the end of the day, when it comes down to the Fed, if you just want, you know, sort of like my opinion about what could possibly be happening with this super quick, basically this is in a nutshell. If they don't raise rates at all today, or they pause, you're probably going to see a massive rally in Bitcoin. If they do go ahead with the 25, probably neutral. Maybe it'll just kind of play out like it was going to. If we do hit the resistance, you might see a slight pullback, right? And if they go with the 50, then you're probably going to see a big market pullback. However, I still am quite interested in seeing how Bitcoin responds, considering how well Bitcoin has been doing despite all of these banks closing down, right? So that is, or not closing down, but running into issues, essentially. So that is the situation, guys. We are still well above these triple threats. We had a beautiful, beautiful bounce. I'm going to be a little bit quicker today on this. So you can see right here this morning, we basically were putting in right here, you know, a bit of a sort of ascending triangle. We did break out of that, but as you guys can see, we are now in another parallel channel to the upside, and we literally did perfectly get hit. So obviously, if we were to fall back down, you would look for some support at around 27,531. And you don't really want to fall out of this because then, you know, we do have this upwards channel, but you probably risk falling back down to around that $25,300 level, which was acting as our previous resistance, right? Again, though, you can see right here, we are getting towards the top of this blue zone, and the ultimate target is about $31,000, which roughly represents this major support here. After that, you do have some consolidation in here. And in here, the next target would be $37,240. Now, guys, obviously, I do not suggest trading on days where there are news events, okay? But obviously if the Fed pauses today, then I think there would be a good chance for a rally, but I'm not giving financial advice on what you should or shouldn't do. But if you do want to learn just simply how to trade on a daily basis, make sure you guys watch my free tutorial popping up above, and there are $56,000 in bonuses below. Also take advantage of that if you guys are interested. And of course, right here, you can see that Bitcoin dominance is still maintaining. It's doing quite well, right? We are still seeing Bitcoin outperforming the altcoins. Now, Mike McClone, right? He is actually talking now about these Bitcoin super cycles. Bitcoin outperforming commodities with declining risk, beating gold. So, he was of the original thought that Bitcoin was going to actually come down a little bit more with everything that's going on with the Fed and everything that's going on with the economy. Now you're seeing everyone kind of getting a little bit more neutral to bullish, right? I mean, he's talking about super cycles now, and he was literally just talking about how, basically Bitcoin was going to probably continue to lower lows based on everything that was happening. But like Crypto Kaduna points out, look at these searches starting to curl back up again, on bank runs. People are starting to get a little bit concerned about what could be happening. So this brings us to this interview, and I want to play some clips from this because a lot of people were asking about this crazy $1 million Bitcoin bet. So Balaji basically goes on to talk about, was this all planned? And how bad is it? Why is he advocating Bitcoin right now? Because keep in mind, this guy is not a Bitcoin maximalist, right? He normally never even really discusses it in this nature, and now he's basically just going full force into crypto. So this is kind of what he had to say.
Before setting up the BitSignal was something where, and again, how intentional is it versus how emergent, I don't know. But the current path was that the Fed causes this crisis, bankrupts all the banks. One of them has a bank run. Fed rolls in. They're both arsonist and firefighter. Somehow they know exactly what's about to happen, right? FDIC rolled in they're real professionals, right? Actually, they knew the bank, everything was insolvent, right? And with all of these small banks, the tech banks, community banks going down, and all the money pinned at the central bank or at the big banks, the CBDC rollout becomes very simple. You just have 4 banks that are really all the same, and now you don't have any choice. And the alternative to that, though, is if people buy Bitcoin, that is literally the exit from the system. It is something that they cannot control. They cannot edit the entries on that ledgers. That's the whole point. It's this bulletproof, decentralized ledger. And the 21 million number, they can't corrupt it and they can't censor it. And this whole thing, everything that we've ever talked about here, you and me for 10 years. And what's funny is I am not, neither of us, I don't think, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist, but we're all going to be Bitcoin maximalists now. Okay. What I mean by that is the Bitcoin maximalist philosophy. And again, I recognize that many of its exponents and so on are like insane and it's all true. But unfortunately, you're going to kind of need insane people for what is about to happen. Okay. Their worldview is the closest. Most people don't have any idea of what's coming. Okay. But Bitcoin maximalists are maybe the only people on earth who are prepared for the potential sovereign default of the US dollar and the rise of Bitcoin and the concept of hyper Bitcoinization, where the reserve currency switches over to BTC and all fiat around the world like basically collapses relative to the hardest money around, right? And basically what the US has done, what the Fed has done is it's caused the fiat crisis. It's not really just a banking crisis, it's a fiat crisis. Because the crisis of having everything centralized in one place and them all screwing it up in the same way at the same time and lying to everybody with uncheckable things. Every single thing that the most intense Bitcoin maximalists would say, for example, I posted that meme of, you could sell your Bitcoin for millions someday. He's like, Neo, when you're ready, you won't have to, right? Because like selling for $1 trillion Zimbabwe dollars, right? So hyper Bitcoinization, which is the simultaneous rise of Bitcoin and transition to reserve currency and the crash of other fiats against it, is going to be a huge mess. Because I think it's going to come much faster than people think. Because with all this printed money, we've got about 3 months before this CBDC gets out there, where you're still a free man, and you might be able to wire it out, and you might be able to turn some of it into BTC and hold that locally. And that is basically the way, that is a way that we might preserve some degree of freedom on the other side of this. Because either it's go ahead. I know that sounds, see, I don't normally talk like this, right?
No. I know
Yeah.
you don't. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this. So I think a key question, and I should blame you because once you put out this bit signal, I have somehow become a half spokesperson for Balaji. I literally have gone on podcasts and they're asking me, what is Balaji doing? I have no clue. So I figured you could explain for yourself. But the other thing is in private, there's people who I think follow your work and they're like, look, Balaji usually doesn't have this type of language. Balaji usually isn't, this public in terms of some of the things that he believes. And so that makes them pay attention. When you made the bet, the $1 million Bitcoin price in 90 days, help unpack. In that bet, are you saying hyperinflation in the United States, or are you saying, no, whether hyperinflation or not, people are going to start to exit and therefore they are going to buy Bitcoin and it will push the price to $1 million in 90-day period? Like, how do you think about, let's go through kind of, if your vision of what is about to happen occurs, what does that world look like over the next 90 days?
What I think is so the reason I did the bet was to get people to the Bitcoin lifeboat. Buy Bitcoin, get your keys off exchanges, get to a Bitcoin-friendly jurisdiction. That is the message. Buy Bitcoin, get your keys off exchanges, get to a Bitcoin-friendly jurisdiction. Everything else I say is a rationale for that, right? But that's what the message I'm getting out there is. I'm basically burning money to do this. It is not something that the thing is, I believe in Bitcoin, but I also believe in the public good. And that's going to be something that's in short supply in what follows. If what I'm saying is correct, and I believe it is, that the central banks and like the US government has betrayed people on this level, right? Such that they just blew up huge amounts of people's savings, okay? And you couldn't even trust the banks. Obviously you knew you couldn't trust the banks, quote unquote, in 2008. But the degree to which, it's like the South Park episode, hey, blah, 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 it's gone, right? You know that thing, right?
But is it really that urgent? Why do we need Bitcoin right now specifically? And in general, just why Bitcoin? There's so many parts of this interview that we could have, picked apart. It's about an hour long, but I think this kind of summarizes where he's coming from.
This financial crisis was creeping up like a panther or like a cloud enveloping people. They weren't even aware of it. It was just, it invested so much in stealth mode that whether, people were just sleepwalking, it just wasn't a topic of conversation and so on. Now, this is something that's cut through the noise. And everybody is aware that there is a financial crisis on and that the banks don't have your money, that the money is gone, right? And that you should probably exchange some of it into Bitcoin, and you should do that sooner rather than later because you don't know. We all don't know. It's just hard to predict timing on anything. But they have announced the July launch of the CBDC, and that feels like as good a deadline as any. They've been killing the crypto rails, right? They killed Signature. They killed Silvergate. There aren't that many ways out. And so what I wanted to do was say, get Bitcoin, get your friends and family to get Bitcoin, get your coins off exchanges, and do that now because they might close the doors. They might bar the exit. Now, the good thing is they won't be able to bar it worldwide because the US doesn't have control over all banks worldwide anymore. There's like UAE and Saudi and so on, but they still do have control over quite a big chunk of it. And, one way of thinking about it is, I was born an American and I'm doing this because I actually love American values. Paul Revere, the printing is coming, right? The printing is coming. That's literally what we're talking about, right? The printing is coming. This is another American analogy. This is a digital Pearl Harbor on all dollar holders. The dollar holder is the bag holder. Okay. And I mean that literally. What's funny is, the funny thing about this is I sound now like the most intense maximalist ever, right? I don't know what.
Yeah, you do. But the reason why I'm laughing is because what you're saying is actually very little to do with Bitcoin, right? Like
yes.
You are basically looking at the traditional financial system and you are saying there are major problems here. And I don't give a shit if you care about Bitcoin or you don't care about Bitcoin, but you have to identify what the problems are and then make the decisions for yourself. Oh, by the way, I, Balaji, believe that Bitcoin is the best solution, but some other people may go buy real estate or buy whatever asset that they think is better. But first you have to get them to identify the problem before they even begin to think about a potential solution.
But here's the thing, though. As he did say, does he necessarily think it's going to literally do that? He did admit that he's basically just sending out the bit signal to make people aware, to get people to start paying attention to the situation at hand. But what if he's actually wrong? Or what if this doesn't go as he actually believes it will?
I think the best argument for why I'm wrong is probably that this will happen, but it'll be over a longer time scale and it won't be that fast. And this is not the final crisis, but it's the precursor to the final crisis, or the final crisis will be in a few years or something, right? Something about it feels different though. And the reason it feels different is it's a consumer-facing crisis. In the sense of all the previous ones were enterprise crises, like you just read in the news that bankers were worried and anxious and sweating and so on. You didn't have 40,000 companies and all of their employees all at the same time completely panicking that their entire life's work would go to zero because, supposedly they're, and it was blamed on them, that you didn't have something like that, right? That is something that causes a fundamental distrust in the US banking system. Moody's downgraded the banking system. In many ways, America is already Argentina. Okay. Now, so why am I wrong? If I'm wrong because it takes longer for inflation to propagate out than I think. Because I think now they have printed so much money that it's a matter of time. But I want to be wrong in a sense because, and I'll probably post this when I post a bet, I hope I don't win. Okay. In that sense, because, what this is a way to call attention to this stealth financial crisis. And, it's like prepping, it's like buying a gun or whatever. You hope you don't have to use it, but you better be prepared because you might, so buying Bitcoin and getting to a jurisdiction that is Bitcoin friendly, that has, Texas GOP has this thing, shall not be infringed, right? The right to buy, sell, send, and receive Bitcoin shall not be infringed. Mississippi, Montana, they have right to mine bills. Tennessee, Wyoming have the Dow laws. Obviously, Florida, is pro Bitcoin. And I kind of think what will happen is a potential dividing line in the not too distant future there'll be states that blue states that don't allow individuals to hold Bitcoin. Only the government can, like gun bans, right? And red states that allow individuals to hold Bitcoin.
So obviously when it comes to FedNow, it's not exactly a CBDC. It's somewhat of a precursor of a CBDC. And Powell was actually asked about this. This came out March 8th, so this isn't exactly a super new video, but he does actually explain in the video that FedNow is more of a way to allow instant settlement between banks. Of course, using banking apps would allow the retail, but he said that we're still very, very far away from an official CBDC in the sense that most of these doom and gloomers essentially are talking about it.
It says here that the discussions would include technical experimentation. I was just wondering at what level are you talking about making decisions on architecture for a CBDC, a retail CBDC?
We're not at the stage of making any real decisions. What we're doing is experimenting in kind of early stage experimentation. How would this work? Does it work? What's the best technology? What's the most efficient? We're really at an early stage but we're making progress on sort of technological issues. The policy issues are equally important, though. We haven't decided that this is something that the financial system in the country want or need.
All right.
So that's going to be very important.
Let me switch over to FedNow. There are some champions of digital currency and stable coins in particular that continue to cite the need for faster payment systems. However, as was earlier mentioned, the FedNow is a service that the Fed is working on to finalize that will allow for instant payments between bank accounts. And the Fed has a target release date for FedNow between May and July, which is right around the corner. Do you see any reason why cryptocurrencies would provide faster payments than the FedNow system? And would this offer, with the transparency of FedNow, would it offer distinct advantages over some of these stable coins that are touting faster payments?
What FedNow will do is it will enable all the banks, any bank in the United States, not just the big ones, to offer instantly available funds and real-time payments to their customers. That's what it will do. So that's a great thing. you know, a CBDC, I think you're asking whether a CBDC would serve some of that, but CBDC is going to be years in the evaluation. And, you know, I think we can get this into the hands of the public very quickly. And I think we'll have real-time payments in this country very, very soon.
So basically, in a nutshell, if we actually try not to get too extreme on either side of the coin, you can actually see that when it comes to what Balaji is talking about, he's basically treating it as a prepper would, right? Like, when is the best time to get a plunger for an overflowing toilet? It's not while the toilet's overflowing, right? No, it's before the toilet is clogged or overflowing, right? You want to have that plunger in case, but you know what? Maybe the toilet never overflows, right? Same thing with prepping. We hope that we never get into a situation where we can't go to the store and we can't buy food and things get that bad, and we hope that we don't ever have to go down into the prepper's pantry or we don't have to use any of the weapons, right? But it's there just in case. So I think that's kind of where he's coming from. I just think he's doing it in a very eccentric way to get attention to the cause. And on the flip side, you know, if you're going to take the ultimate, you know, what these guys are doing, it doesn't appear, unless, of course, they could be lying to us, that they're going to be coming out with this CBDC anytime soon. The way that Powell breaks it down is FedNow is something more for just the banks to use with each other. Obviously, this would affect the clients. It would affect the retail because you'd be using banking apps, probably, right, to transfer funds. So I think we have to kind of take the whole situation with a grain of salt. But nevertheless, you do have Governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, pushing back. This is a video in a press conference that he had. This was a half-hour long. I'm not going to play any more clips today. It's pretty summarized, but basically, he said that he wants to protect residents from national or global bank digital currencies. He says CBDCs would erode financial freedom, he argues, and they must be opposed. So he introduced a legislation conformant with Florida's Uniform Commercial Code to shield residents from a national CBDC, and he has called upon like-minded governors to combat surveillance and control from the federal government and adopt similar legislation under its commercial codes. If passed, the law would also protect Florida residents from a global digital currency issued by a foreign central bank. DeSantis emphasized that Florida will not support the erosion of financial freedom, and you also had Taryn Bragdon of the Foundation of Government Accountability saying that he did support the bill and was against an out-of-control government bureaucracy. So this has all sparked speculation about, you know, would the United States actually break apart? You know, and Texas and Florida are pro-Bitcoin and these other states are against Bitcoin. I mean, who knows what could actually happen? Is Bitcoin going to be banned on a federal level? It doesn't really seem like that based on the way that these guys are talking. You know, you're not seeing really anyone come out and say they want to ban it. You're not seeing Powell come out and say, I want to ban Bitcoin. You're not, he says he doesn't understand some of the speculative nature of some of the cryptos, but they're not talking about banning it, right? So I just think that a lot of this news you do have to take with a grain of salt. Is it possible that there could be like a Bitcoin and crypto civil war where everybody's separating over CBDCs versus not CBDCs? It's possible. But as I said, guys, on a federal level, I don't think that there's an issue. So just kind of getting back to the fun part, I know we've talked a lot about the technical, or not the technicals, but the sort of fundamentals. I wanted to get back to the technicals and give a shout out to my buddy, Kevin Svensson, because he points out this parabolic curve for Bitcoin. And could we possibly, maybe we're not going to a million. Maybe we're not going to a million, right? We were saying somewhere around 28 to 30, and we're kind of in that ballpark already. Kevin Svensson says maybe 60K based on the parabolic curve. What do you think?
Bitcoin from 15,500 at the beginning of the year to where we are now currently at 28,200. Bitcoin has created 2 bases of support, and possibly we're about to create base 3. Why is that important? Well, if you look at the parabolic diagram, it suggests after 3 bases of support being created within the parabola, the stock price then doubles, or in this case, the crypto price then doubles after base 3. Guys, this means we have a possible base being created around 30,000 and then double to 60, according to the textbook.
So that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. Crazy, crazy times ahead. Like I said, you probably already know the FOMC outcome. If you guys aren't following me over on Twitter, I usually tend to tweet that out, let you guys know. But at the end of the day, I do still believe that Bitcoin is potentially the answer. I don't believe it's going to be banned, and I hope that a lot of these predictions don't actually come true, because as much as people would be rooting for it, it would also be quite catastrophic. So let's hope that somewhere in the middle we find that happy medium. But let me know what you guys think about all this stuff below, these crazy, crazy times that we're living in. And of course, guys, if you're not subscribed, get subscribed. If you do want to learn how to trade the volatility, you know what? Prices go up, prices go down. There's lots of opportunity to still make money, to still make Bitcoin in the process. So if you are interested, check out these tutorials popping up right here, right now. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.